So you and we're about to go on a little adventure together. That adventure is going to span 118 years of Tudors, and it's going to be one generation at a time. How does that sound to you? I'll be your host this evening. My name is Christina. Thank you for joining us here at my Tudor era Tapestry. The autumn chill seeped through the stone walls of the Abbey, where Elizabeth, Dowager Queen of England, resided in her quiet seclusion, her once dazzling beauty softened by grief and time. Richard III, her brother-in-law, lay dead, and Henry Tudor, now Henry VII, had claimed the throne. Elizabeth at 48 stood, her fingers tracing the edge of a velvet curtain, her thoughts tangled with hopes and loss. Her daughter Eliza was the key to uniting the houses. The fate of her sons, the princes in the Tower, haunted her still, their absence a wound that would not heal. In the days following the battle, word came of Henry's bold decree to backdate his reign. Elizabeth, seasoned in the games of power, recognized the cunning of it. Yet it also stirred an unease in her heart. Her Yorkist kin, loyal to her late husband Edward IV, now faced ruin, unless they bent to Henry's will. Her own position as mother to the Yorkist heiress hung in a delicate balance. From her seclusion, Elizabeth moved cautiously. Her influence diminished, but not extinguished. Elizabeth pressed for assurances, her daughter's place as queen, her own dower lands restored, and perhaps, though unspoken, some truth about her sons. The fall of the usurper who had imprisoned her sons brought a fleeting surge of vindication, but it could not pierce the deeper wound that gnawed at her heart. The fate of her boys, Edward and Richard, vanished from the Tower's stone walls these past 2 years. As a mother, she clung to the faint possibility that her boys had escaped, perhaps hidden by loyalists or smuggled abroad by some unknown hand. She had written coded letters to contacts in Flanders, seeking word of the 2 young princes, but no reply had come. Dead or alive, her sons were pawns in a game now won by Henry Tudor, his claim to the throne bolstered by her daughter Eliza's hand. Demanded a unified narrative, one that might require the final erasure of her son's claim to silence Yorkist rebels. The thought chilled her, yet she could not deny the necessity of her daughter's marriage to Henry, a union that would heal the bleeding realm and secure her surviving children's future. She learned of Henry's coronation through a letter from her loyal maid, its words painting Westminster's Abbey's soaring arches, the heavy crown of St. Edward gleaming on Henry's brow, the choir's hymns rising like incense. She did not stand in the side gallery as some might have imagined, but in her mind's eye she saw the scene. Nobles pledging fealty, many once sworn to her husband, now bowing to a Tudor king. Her thoughts drifted to her daughter, Eliza, 19 and radiant, soon to wed Henry. In Henry's triumph, she glimpsed a path forward. Her daughter's marriage to seal the Tudor throne was her legacy's thread, a fragile piece woven from the wars that had torn her family. She thought of Margaret, Henry's mother, whose ambition had crowned her son, a woman Elizabeth respected, but had never trusted, their paths crossing only in shared dreams of stability. Elizabeth, her eyes still sharp with resolve, vowed to endure. London's distant bells ringing for Henry's coronation stirred her heart. The soft glow of candlelight flickered across the tapestries in Elizabeth's chambers, where the Dowager Queen spent her days in quiet retirement. The news of her grandson Arthur's birth had brought a rare smile to her weathered face. Her daughter Eliza had delivered a healthy son to Henry, a prince. Elizabeth, confined to the Abbey by Henry's cautious decree, felt a pang of pride mixed with longing. The child, born 8 months after her daughter's wedding, was a living bridge between York and Lancaster, a testament to the marriage she had brokered with Margaret to secure peace. Yet as she traced the embroidered roses on her sleeve, the absence of her own sons, the princes in the Tower, gnawed at her heart, their fate a mystery she dared not voice. The ceremony, orchestrated by Margaret, had been a triumph. Winchester Cathedral aglow with tapers, Arthur baptized in cloth of gold, with Elizabeth herself named godmother, a symbolic nod to her Yorkist influence. She wrote to her daughter, urging her to nurture Arthur's health and to temper Henry's mistrust of the Yorkist old guard, knowing the boy's survival was key to the fragile peace. As months passed, Elizabeth's seclusion grew heavier. She corresponded sparingly, her letters carried by trusted servants, aware that Henry's spies watched her closely. The court's focus on Arthur gave her hope, but whispers of discontent reached her by spring of 1487. Yorkist exiles, restless under Tudor rule, were stirring in Ireland, a hotbed of loyalty to her late husband. The Dowager Queen's heart quickened at rumors of a new claimant, a boy named Lambert Simnel, said to be her nephew, Edward, Earl of Warwick. Though she knew her nephew was imprisoned in the Tower, the impostor landed in Ireland in early 1487 and was crowned Edward VI. Elizabeth, confined yet sharp as ever, saw the danger. Simnel's rebellion, though built on a lie, threatened her grandson's future and the Tudor-York union she had championed. She sent coded messages to Eliza, warning her to stay vigilant, and to Margaret, my lady the king's mother, offering counsel to rally loyal lords. Her own role was limited, her influence a shadow of her days as queen, but she prayed daily at the chapel, the scent of incense mingling with her fears. Simnel's forces were marching toward England, their banners a challenge to Henry's crown. Her fingers, still elegant, clutched a folded letter, its wax seal broken, bearing news that stirred fresh unease. Some claimed he was Edward, her brother-in-law Clarence's son, escaped from confinement. Others whispered he might be her own son, Edward or Richard, spirited away from the Tower's shadow. Elizabeth's heart, battered by years of uncertainty, leapt at the thought, only to sink under the weight of doubt. Her sons, if alive, would be older now, their boyish faces sharpened by time. Yet the possibility, however faint, clouded her. A mother's hope, warring with a queen's pragmatism. Lambert's rebellion, if it gained traction, could unravel the fragile peace her daughter Eliza's marriage to Henry was meant to weave. Henry's throne, newly won at Bosworth, rested on the union of York and Lancaster with Eliza as its keystone. A pretender claiming Yorkist blood would stir old loyalties, rousing nobles still bitter at Richard III's fall and Henry's ruthless decrees. His backdating of the reign to brand Yorkist traitors, their lands forfeit, if Lambert were to be believed, even for a moment, he could rally those who saw Eliza's marriage as a Tudor leash on York's white rose. Her daughter's place as queen might falter, and Elizabeth's own dower lands, promised but not restored, would slip further from her grasp. She sank into a chair, the letter trembling in her hand. The rebellion shadow threatened more than politics. It pierced the wound of her son's fate. If Lambert were a fraud, propped up by Yorkist plotters like John Delapole or lingering Ricardians, his failure would tighten Henry's grip, perhaps costing her son Edward or Warwick their lives, if they yet lived. If by some miracle Lambert were her son, raised in secret to challenge the Tudor, his rebellion was a desperate gamble, one that could end in a noose or a headsman's axe. Elizabeth's mind spun to memories of her boys, Edward's bright laughter, Richard's quiet cling to her skirts, now overlaid with the grim image of a battlefield, another Bosworth, where her blood might spill again. As news of the rebellion's approach reached her, Elizabeth's thoughts turned to her grandson, not yet a year old, and her daughter, the new queen. She knew Henry's army, bolstered by Stanley's men, would face Simnel at Stoke Field. Once a queen, she now stood on the margins, her legacy tied to a boy whose claim rested on her blood, and the hope that Simnel's shadow would not undo the fragile peace she had helped to forge. On a frost-laced morning in 1489, Elizabeth Woodville stood in the shadowed grandeur of Westminster Abbey, her silver-gilt hair veiled beneath a delicate gauzy shroud, her once radiant face now etched with the quiet grief of a mother and queen dethroned. At 42, her beauty lingered, pale skin like moonlight on the Thames, hazel eyes sharp with a survivor's clarity, yet dimmed by the weight of her Yorkist legacy as Edward IV's widow. Clad in somber damask, her tall frame moved with a grace tempered by loss, a faint echo of the courtly splendor she once commanded. The investiture of her grandson, Arthur, Prince of Wales, was a moment of fragile triumph, but it stirred like a tempest of conflicting emotions in her heart, a tapestry woven with pride, sorrow, and the unhealed wound of her missing son. At 3, her grandson Arthur stood small but solemn, his golden curls catching candlelight, his tiny hand clutching a velvet cap as he was proclaimed heir to the Tudor throne. Elizabeth's lips curved faintly, a flicker of pride warming in her chest as she gazed upon her grandson from a distance. He was her blood, a testament to her daughter's strength and her own relentless maneuvering to secure a future for her line. In Arthur's delicate features, she saw traces of her late husband, King Edward IV, and the promise of a dynasty reborn. Yet the title Prince of Wales pierced her like a blade. For the last to bear it had been her son, Prince Edward, a golden-haired prince stolen from her, vanished into the Tower's shadows alongside his brother Richard. The memory of her boys clawed at her, a grief she carried like a stone. Her daughter Eliza, beautiful beside King Henry, her poise a quiet victory. Elizabeth's heart swelled with love for her daughter's triumph, yet it ached with the cost of her survival. She had schemed and sacrificed to place her family on this path, but the price, her sons, her power, her peace, haunted her. The investiture was a moment of glory, yet it forced her to confront the ghost of her Edward, the true Prince of Wales, whose fate remained a wound that time could not close. Pride in Arthur warred with the sorrow of what was lost, leaving her to stand in the Abbey's chill, a queen of shadows, her heart torn between the living and the gone. This was a rare outing for the Dowager Queen. Exiled to Bermondsey Abbey in 1487, Elizabeth's world had shrunk to cloistered walls and whispered rumors. Her status as Dowager Queen, a hollow title under Henry's wary gaze. She had been a queen who shaped a dynasty, her marriage to Edward IV a scandal that birthed Eliza. Now was England's hope. But the Tudor court, with Margaret Beaufort's sharp-eyed vigilance, kept her at a distance, her Yorkist blood a silent thread. At Bermondsey, her days were woven with prayer and needlework, her chamber warmed by a single hearth, its smoke curling like her memories of Whitehall's laughter and her husband's golden reign. By spring of 1490, Elizabeth's solitude at Bermondsey deepened as whispers of a new threat crept through the Abbey's stone corridors. A young man, Perkin Warbeck, had emerged in Ireland, claiming to be her son, Richard, Duke of York, escaped from the Tower's doom. The rumor struck her like a blade, her breath catching as she stood by her narrow window. Gazing over the Thames' gray ripples, her fingers delicate but warm traced the edge of a worn prayer book, its pages soft from years of touch. Could it be true? Her Richard, her sweet boy with her husband's smile, alive after years of silence? Her heart surged with a mother's desperate hope, yet her mind, honed by years of courtly intrigue, cautioned doubt. Warbeck's claim, backed by Yorkist exiles in foreign courts, was a spark in a realm still tinder dry from civil war. Elizabeth knew the danger, and this pretender threatened to unravel that fragile bond. Margaret's letters, sharp with suspicion, reached her even in seclusion, urging vigilance, as if Elizabeth herself might fuel rebellion. Her days grew heavier, her prayers more fervent. She walked Bermondsey's cloister, her steps slow, her black gown brushing cold stone, her thoughts a tangle of hope and fear. She had faced Richard III's shadow, survived Sanctuary's confines, and seen her daughter crowned Queen of England. Yet this new spectre tested her resolve. Her hazel eyes, flickering with doubt, scanned faces of her maids. Were they spies for Henry, watching for a mother's treason? She wrote to Eliza in careful script, her words veiled, offering love but no promises, knowing each letter was read by Tudor eyes. To hope was to risk her daughter's throne and her safety. To doubt was to bury her son again. As spring turned into summer, she stood alone, her heart a vigil, her beauty a fading flame, her prayers a plea for truth in a realm where crowns were forged in lies. The summer air hung heavy with the scent of blooming roses and river mist where Elizabeth resided in quiet seclusion. Her once vibrant beauty echoed with lines of grief and resilience. In June, news reached her of the birth of her second grandson, Henry Tudor, born to her daughter Eliza at Greenwich Palace. The summer twilight of late June 1491 cast a frail glow over the Abbey, where Elizabeth sat in her chamber, her fingers clutching a white rose pressed within a prayer book, its brittle petals a faint echo of her Yorkist heart. The birth of Henry, named for his father, was a triumph for her daughter, a second male heir to strengthen the Tudor dynasty after Arthur. She pictured the boy, perhaps with Elizabeth's golden hair, his cries a promise of stability. She lingered a moment on the memories of her many babies, some grown now, some gone. Yet the rumors of Warbeck, filtering through loyal maids' hushed words, cut deeper, reviving the wound of her sons. The youth, proclaimed in Burgundy as Richard, Duke of York, bore a tale of escape and royal bearing, stirring a mother's desperate hope. Could her boy, last seen at 9 with his shy smile, live? Her joy for Henry's birth mingled with this faint spark, a longing to believe Richard might return, restoring her shattered heart. But doubt, sharpened by the Lambert-Simnel rebellion, held her hope in check. Warbeck's claim, backed by Yorkist exiles, felt too much like Simnel's deceit, a ploy to unsettle Henry VII's throne. Elizabeth, seasoned in courtly games, feared another false dawn, her skepticism a shield against further pain. Elizabeth, once the White Queen, lay in her shadowed chamber. Her once dazzling beauty seemed a fragile relic, her golden hair dulled to silver, her eyes dim as twilight's edge. The world beyond the abbey's walls thrummed with the Tudor dynasty's rise. Yet here, in this damp hush, Elizabeth was but a whisper of her former self, a rose pressed thin between the pages of her forgotten book. Memories flickered in the half-light. Her sons, Edward and Richard, lost to the tower's shadow, the crown she'd won through love and guile, the bitter exile of her power under Tudor rule. Whispers of Perkin Warbeck, a youth claiming her son Richard's name, had reached her months ago, stirring a mother's desperate spark. Could her boy live? But doubt had quenched that hope, leaving only the ache of absence. Her daughter's strength, her grandchildren's laughter, these were her legacy. Yet they felt distant, like stars veiled by mist. The abbey's silence pressed close, broken by the slow drip of wax from a lone candle, its golden ray a frail defiance against the indigo dusk creeping through the window. Elizabeth's breath faltered, each inhale a labor, her body worn by years of ambition and loss. No court gathered to mark her passing, no heralds to sing her name. Only a single attendant, eyes wet with quiet loyalty, knelt by her side, murmuring a prayer as the Queen's gaze drifted to the unseen horizon. She thought of Eliza, her golden daughter, whose womb had birthed a dynasty, and of Henry, her grandson, his fierce cries a promise of kingship yet to come. On June 8, as the mist thickened and the candle's flame wavered, Elizabeth Woodville slipped into eternity, her once vibrant beauty now a whisper, softened by death's gentle thorns. The toll of a distant bell echoed through the fog, a solitary knell swallowed by the river's sigh. No trumpet sounded, no herald sang. Only the petals of a white rose, scattered on the wind, marked the end of a queen whose legacy endured in her daughter's line, a golden thread weaving through the gathering dusk. You can share your thoughts with me at longlivethequeenpodcast@gmail.com. Slide into my DMs on Facebook or Instagram at Long Live the Queen Podcast, or join the party on Patreon, where we have extended episodes and bonus content.